The right choice is a difficult one. Stay away from negative and unwholesome behavior. Where am I seeking for my happiness?
I need $228,
and I'm excited to be joined by two filmmakers, Beth Levison and Laura Brownson. Had to look down. Lot going on here this morning.
Lot going on.
The film Lemon. Talk to me about how you found, maybe I'll start with you, Laura. How did you find this, how did you stumble upon?
You know, I really did stumble. I saw Lemon performing a small bit of poetry, and I was, you know, it was one of those sort of goosebump moments where you I've not seen many things like it in my life, and but he was communicating within that poetry a really painful past. So I recognized maybe there was a story there, and I started digging a little bit into the story and realized that he was also living out a unfolding difficult time in his own life. He had moved his 2 daughters and wife back into the projects with 13 people. He'd had a bit of a breakdown and was just in a really tough place, and I sort of recognized that there was a story worth capturing.
And so did poetry become his salvation, or becomes his salvation, that it gets him out and gets him the power of written word? That's the uplifting part of Lemon?
I think that's part of the story. I mean, he certainly says that poetry gave me a chance when nobody else would. And I think that it did, and that it didn't discriminate. And I think that was really important to Lemon, that he could be an artist, he could be a poet, it would give him a chance. And then he did have this natural, kind of incredible talent. So, yeah, I think that poetry in many ways did save him, and it gave him this opportunity to also reckon with his story and reckon with his past and kind of allow it to go behind him.
But when you say you stumbled upon Lemon, how did you find him? It's just...
He was working with an educational theater program called American Place Theater, and he sort of was desperate for a job, and they offered him a job, and they gave him a place really to write. And so he had started to write. His idea was, I'm going to get myself out of this desperate place in life. I'm going to change my kids' lives with the only thing I really have left, which is my story. And his story is heartbreaking, tragic, incredible.
Yeah.
He's a 3-time felon. His both parents died of HIV/AIDS. It doesn't really get more difficult than his. And he said, I'm going to write my story, I'm going to put it on the New York stage, and I'm going to get myself out of here. And it was so crazy.
Right, what's the odds of that being noticed?
0.
Right, exactly.
But, we said we're going to do it, and we followed him for 3 years. And I don't want to give the story away, but it's worth watching.
How did it change you? I mean, when you meet someone like Lemon, people, I think, leave marks on us. How did it change you, Beth?
Huh. I mean, I really do believe that, when we first met Lemon, I had this feeling that I'd never met anybody like him before.
That is correct.
That he had this combination of poise, and yet he'd had such a difficult story, and he had done time, and I think that I had a lot of assumptions about what someone who's done time in jail is like, for example, or I just had a lot of assumptions, and I think that Lemon, spending time with Lemon really challenged those, and I think also as an artist, and I think probably speaking for us for both of us in some ways, I think he was incredibly inspiring to me, that if this guy could pull it off, then like, for example, we certainly had to pull it off.
Right, exactly.
And so he's just incredibly inspiring, and I think that's, in many ways, I related to Lemon's struggle in my own way, and I think other people can relate to his struggle in their own way. And so he changed me in many ways.
And then Laura, I mean, how much do you think, all of his background, I mean, is it almost necessary for his work? I mean, it shaped him. I mean...
Absolutely. I mean, you cannot... look, the best artists in the world and throughout history are those that have had to suffer for their art. And, he certainly is suffering and has suffered for his art. And, he has both a unique voice, because his voice is very urban. His voice is, you know, specific to from where he comes, but he's a poet.
Right.
So
Which
there
seems almost like this contradiction,
it's
right?
It's right.
Well, we actually have a clip of him performing, so let's take a look. This is from Lemon.
I'm in the heart of it all. Behind this city, there is a history of struggle. A beautiful struggle. Believe it or not, she's actually in a good mood. My mother, Millie, is 5 feet full of tough tenderness. Every shimmy, every shake, every slide, every glide slides in sync. Cause he's the black sheep, and I'm always referred as the golden child. Oliver Twist kid with a Kool-Aid smile, my big bro. Only one more dark night, and I will finally live like a regular kid, you dig? Thinking love, or the money. Money or the love. Should I go straight with my life, or should I go straight thug?
Amazing. The energy. He's a physical poet.
Yeah.
Yes, he's
Very
very
physical.
physical.
He's just incredibly charismatic. Watching him on stage is really, it's like watching him dance and yeah.
What's his future? What do you see for Lemon? Are you going to continue to follow him?
Well, you know, I mean, as you said, he leaves a mark, so we have a definite relationship that will last forever, and a friendship, and a mutual respect, I think, and admiration. But he literally just got his second Sundance grant. He will be spending the month of July in Sundance writing his next play.
Wonderful.
So he is on to good things.
You know, how does somebody, I mean, to be so open and honest about that? I mean, he's really exposed himself in the movie. Was that something that he was willing to do, or is that something that you had to work out of him, Beth?
I think it was probably a little bit of both, but it's certainly a portrait of Lemon. It's also a portrait of his family, a portrait of his wife, and they were incredible. It's a portrait of the people that supported him, and people were incredibly open, and I think there was a great deal of trust there. And so I think that there were some instances where Lemon, for example, had no choice. He was just going through a really tough time, but you know, he deserves a real something for letting us be there and letting us follow.
Well,
that.
I think it's a hopeful story.
Yeah.
I mean, for others. I mean, to share that is to say, like, you can shift, you can, you know.
But it was important to us when we made the film that it not be just a simply, you know, love letter to Lemon Andersen. It's not that. In many ways, you know, he did make choices along the way. He comes from where he comes.
Right.
And he you know, has learned to really take care of himself and survive, and that informs some of the choices he makes along the road. And so, you know, it's a bumpy road at times. It is not at all completely perfect step by step. We really watch the struggle.
What life is.
Right.
Right. When can we catch it? Today?
Today at 10 a.m. at Bennett Hall. Tomorrow,
12 noon at the casino.
Oh, wonderful. It's
Yeah.
so nice to meet you, too.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Congratulations on Lemon.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We're going to be back with more here on 228.